God says, now you are stepping into the phase where preparation begins to show results. Not all at once, not dramatically, but clearly. What was forming in the unseen is starting to surface. Small confirmations. Quiet openings. Subtle shifts. These are not coincidences. They are signs that obedience is bearing fruit. For a long time, you trusted God without evidence. You walked by faith when nothing around you supported it. God says, that season mattered. Faith that survives without proof is the kind of faith I can build on. And now, I am allowing you to see pieces of what I promised, not to make you dependent on signs, but to strengthen your confidence. Some of you will notice new peace before new blessings. Calm before clarity. Assurance before answers. God often changes the inside before He changes the outside, because peace prepares you to handle what is coming. If the blessing arrived before the healing, it would overwhelm you. So God healed you first. You may feel a renewed sense of motivation, but it is not restless energy. It is focused. You are no longer chasing everything. You are becoming selective. God says, this focus is protection. When purpose becomes clear, distractions lose their appeal. There are doors opening that feel natural, not forced. Conversations flowing easily. Opportunities aligning without manipulation. God says, when it is from me, it will not exhaust you. You are learning the difference between striving and trusting. Between pushing and following. Some of you are being reintroduced to dreams you once buried. Dreams you gave up on because life hurt too much. God says, pick them up again. Not in the same way, not with the same expectations, but with renewed faith. What I revive will be stronger than before. You may also notice that some people cannot walk with you into this season. Not because they are bad, but because they are not aligned. God says, let them go peacefully. You don't need to explain everything. Seasons change, There is a deeper confidence forming in you. Not loud, not arrogant, but steady. You know who you belong to. You know who guides you. You know that even if things don't go perfectly, God remains faithful. This confidence is spiritual maturity. God is also sharpening your discernment. You sense when to speak and when to stay silent. When to move and when to wait. This wisdom will save you from unnecessary battles. Not every fight deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves your attention. You are learning how to trust God with success the same way you trusted Him in struggle. This is important. God says, do not leave me when life improves. Stay dependent. Stay grateful. Stay prayerful. Blessing without God leads to emptiness, but blessing with God leads to fulfillment. Some of you are experiencing restoration in areas you thought were permanently damaged. Trust being rebuilt. Joy returning slowly. Faith becoming alive again. God says, nothing is too broken for me. I restore fully, not partially. There may still be challenges, but they no longer define you. Problems come, but they do not shake your foundation. God says, you are rooted now. Storms reveal depth, and your roots go deep. God is preparing you to be a testimony. Not one built on perfection, but on grace. People will see how you survived, how you stayed faithful, how you didn't give up. And they will see God through your story. Jesus did not rush into glory. He walked faithfully through obedience. God says, follow his example. The crown comes after the cross. The fulfillment comes after faithfulness. You are also learning how to receive without guilt. Some of you struggle to accept good things because you were used to struggle. God says, it is okay to receive. You are not undeserving. Grace is not earned, it is given. This season invites gratitude. Gratitude for growth. Gratitude for healing. Gratitude for progress. Even if everything is not complete yet, God says, thank me for how far you've. This message is not random. This message is not coincidence. If you are watching this right now, God's timing brought you here. God sees you. He knows your struggles, your questions, your pain, your hopes. You may feel weary, you may feel like you're carrying burdens no one else understands, but God says, I see you and I am with you. I want you to hear this clearly. God's love for you is not based on your performance, it is based on his character. His love does not come and go with circumstances. His presence is constant, his mercy is continuous, and his faithfulness never fails. Sometimes life hurts. Sometimes storms don't seem to stop. Sometimes unanswered prayers make you wonder if God forgot you. But God says, I have never forgotten you. The silence you felt was not absence. God was working behind the scenes, strengthening you, shaping you, preparing you for what is ahead. God is near to the broken-hearted. God does not dismiss your tears. He does not ignore your deepest wounds. Every time you cried out in the dark, he was listening. Even when you whispered your prayer with trembling lips, God heard you. He felt every heartbeat, every tear, every burden. Too often we confuse delay with denial. But God says, delay is not denial. Sometimes God delays because what you're asking for will only be blessing you if your heart is ready for it. God's timing is perfect, not early, not late, perfectly aligned with what your life needs. God does not promise a life without challenges. Jesus said that storms would come. But he also promised something greater, I am with you always. Even when the winds blow, even when the waves rise, God's presence does not leave you. Storms test faith, but faith anchored in God never drifts. There may have been seasons where you prayed and saw no answer, where you expected breakthrough but only felt waiting. God says, do not lose hope. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. What you asked for in prayer is already on the way. You are also being healed from comparison. You no longer measure your progress against others. God says, your journey is custom-made. What I am doing in you cannot be duplicated. There may be moments when old fears try to return. Memories that remind you of past failures. God says, do not look back. That chapter is closed. I redeemed it. I rewrote it. It no longer defines you. Jesus walked forward even when misunderstood. God says, so will you. Not everyone will celebrate your. God says, now you are entering the season where movement becomes visible. Not rushed movement, not chaotic movement, but intentional steps guided by faith. What once felt stuck is beginning to breathe again. What once felt closed is loosening. This is not luck. This is alignment. You may notice that things are responding differently to you now. Conversations carry more weight. Decisions bring more peace. Your presence itself feels calmer. God says, this is authority forming. Authority does not come from control, it comes from obedience walked out over time. There were years when you prayed for change but felt ignored. God says, I was listening the whole time. What you asked for required inner transformation before external manifestation. And now, because you are rooted, what comes will not uproot you. Some of you are stepping into roles you never imagined for yourself. You once felt invisible, overlooked, underestimated. God says, I hid you on purpose. Protection looks like delay when you don't yet see the full picture. But now, visibility is coming with responsibility. You are also recognizing how far you've come emotionally. Situations that once triggered fear now receive wisdom. Conversations that once drained you now feel manageable. God says, this is healing made practical. Healing is not the absence of struggle, it is the presence of stability. God is opening doors that require courage to walk through. Not because they are unsafe, but because they are unfamiliar. God says, trust me in new territory. The same God who carried you through the valley will guide you on the mountain. There will be moments when old voices try to speak again, voices of doubt, insecurity, comparison. God says, do not agree with them. You are no longer the person who believed those lies. Truth has reshaped you. Some of you are experiencing restoration in confidence. Not loud confidence, but assurance. You know when to speak and when to stay silent. You know when to move and W. Jesus washed feet before he wore the crown. God says, never forget that. Your greatest strength will always be your surrender. Some blessings coming your way will test your values. Not because they are wrong, but because they will require wisdom. God says, choose purpose over applause. What lasts will not always be loud. You are learning to carry joy and seriousness at the same time. Gratitude without distraction. Focus without pressure. God says, this balance is maturity. There may be days when things move faster than you expected. God says, stay calm. Speed does not mean chaos when God is leading. It means preparation has met opportunity. You are also being protected from pride. God says, remember where you came from. Not to shame you, but to keep you grounded. Gratitude keeps blessings safe. Some of you will see financial doors open, relational healing begin, or purpose-driven opportunities appear. God says, do not fear increase. Increase is not dangerous when God is your source. You are becoming someone people trust, not because you are perfect, but because you are consistent. God values consistency more than intensity. There will be moments when you feel the weight of calling. God says, lean on me. You are not meant to carry purpose alone. Grace carries what strength cannot. You may not recognize yourself anymore, and that is a good thing. You are no longer reactive. You are responsive. You are no longer driven by fear. You are guided by faith. This season requires courage to keep saying yes. Yes when it's easier to stay comfortable. Yes when obedience stretches you. God says, every yes matters. Jesus never chased validation. He stayed aligned. God says, so will you. Your life is becoming a quiet testimony of faithfulness. If you feel awe when you look back, that is gratitude awakening. God says, look forward now. What I have begun, I will complete. This is not just a breakthrough season. This is a stewardship season. What God gives now must be. God says, now you are stepping into the phase where preparation begins to show results. Not all at once, not dramatically, but clearly. What was forming in the unseen is starting to surface. Small confirmations. Quiet openings. Subtle shifts. These are not coincidences. They are signs that obedience is bearing fruit. For a long time, you trusted God without evidence. You walked by faith when nothing around you supported it. God says, that season mattered. Faith that survives without proof is the kind of faith I can build on. And now, I am allowing you to see pieces of what I promised, not to make you dependent on signs, but to strengthen your confidence. Some of you will notice new peace before new blessings. Calm before clarity. Assurance before answers. God often changes the inside before He changes the outside, because peace prepares you to handle what is coming. If the blessing arrived before the healing, it would overwhelm you. So God healed you first. You may feel a renewed sense of motivation, but it is not restless energy. It is focused. You are no longer chasing everything. You are becoming selective. God says, this focus is protection. When purpose becomes clear, distractions lose their appeal. There are doors opening that feel natural, not forced. Conversations flowing easily. Opportunities aligning without manipulation. God says, when it is from me, it will not exhaust you. You are learning the difference between striving and trusting. Between pushing and following. Some of you are being reintroduced to dreams you once buried. Dreams you gave up on because life hurt too much. God says, pick them up again. Not in the same way, not with the same expectations, but with renewed faith. What I revive will be stronger than before. You may also notice that some people cannot walk with you into this season. Not because they are bad, but because they are not aligned. God says, let them go peacefully. You don't need to explain everything. Seasons change, God says, this is the moment where what I promised is no longer just something you believe, it becomes something you live. The journey did not make you bitter, it made you better. The waiting did not weaken you, it refined you. And now, what once required faith alone is beginning to stand on firm ground. You are noticing a quiet confidence settling into your spirit. Not excitement that fades, not emotion that depends on circumstances, but assurance. God says, this is trust complete. God says, now you are standing at a sacred threshold. Not because everything is perfect, but because your heart is settled. You are no longer chasing answers, you are walking in assurance. This is where faith matures into devotion. This is where belief becomes lifestyle. You have learned that God's presence is not proven by constant miracles, but by constant faithfulness. He stayed when you were confused. He stayed when you were tired. He stayed when you doubted yourself. And now you understand something deeper. God never left, even when you felt alone. There is a reverence growing in you. A holy awareness that life is not just about outcomes, but about alignment. God says, live aware of eternity. When eternity shapes your decisions, temporary pressure loses control over you. Some of you are realizing that the greatest miracle was not what changed around you, but what changed within you. Your reactions softened. Your bitterness dissolved. Your fear lost authority. God says, that was my spirit working quietly. You no longer need to win every argument. You no longer need to prove every point. God says, truth does not need defense when it is lived. Your life now speaks what words never could. There is also a deeper compassion in you. You see broken people differently now. Not as problems, but as hearts in need of grace. God says, this is Christ formed in you. When Jesus lives through you, love becomes your reflex. Some of you feel a gentle call toward surrender again, not because you failed, but because growth requires renewal. God says, come closer. Salvation is not a one-time moment, it is a daily relationship. Jesus did not invite people to a religion. He invited them to follow him. God says, follow me here. Not just when it's emotional. Not just when it's convenient. But in the quiet, unseen obedience that shapes character. You are learning to live with eternal priorities. What once felt urgent now feels small. What once felt small now feels sacred. Goddess. This shift is wisdom. When heaven becomes real to you, earth becomes manageable. There may be moments when you feel the weight of purpose, not as pressure, but as calling. God says, I trust you. That trust is not because you are perfect, but because you are surrendered. Some of you are sensing a call to draw closer to Jesus personally. Not through noise. Not through performance. But through repentance, humility, and love. God says, come as you are. Grace meets honesty every time. If there are areas you still hold back, God says, give them to me. Not because he demands control, but because he desires wholeness. Partial surrender creates partial peace. Full surrender creates freedom. Jesus gave everything on the cross so you could live fully, not fearfully. God says, do not live beneath what I paid for. You are forgiven. You are redeemed. You are invited into new life. Some of you have believed in God but kept him at a distance. God says, let me in. Faith is not just belief, it is relationship. And relationship requires closeness. There is an invitation in this moment, not forced, not emotional manipulation, but real. God says, choose me again. Choose truth over comfort. Choose obedience over convenience. Choose Jesus over fear. You may feel the Holy Spirit stirring your heart even now. That is not coincidence. That is calling. God says, respond. Not tomorrow. Not later. Now. If you have carried guilt, Jesus says, lay it down. If you have carried shame, Jesus says, I bore it. If you have carried fear, Jesus says, I overcame it. The cross settled what you still struggle with. This is the moment where eternity touches time. Where heaven reaches earth. Where grace invites decision. God is not asking you to fix yourself. He is asking you to trust Him. He is not asking you to be perfect. He is asking you to be willing. Jesus stands with open arms, not with accusation, not with condemnation, but with love. God says, come home. If you feel a pull in your. God says, this is the moment where everything becomes clear, not because every question is answered, but because your heart has chosen surrender. You have walked through seasons of waiting, seasons of testing, seasons of growth, and now you stand at a place of decision, not forced, not pressured, but invited. Heaven is quiet here, because this moment is sacred. You are no longer the person who started this journey. The fear that once controlled you has lost its grip. The shame that once followed you no longer has a voice. The confusion that once surrounded you has been replaced with peace. God says, this is what my grace does when you let it work. There were days you didn't think you would make it this far. Nights you prayed short prayers because long ones felt too heavy. Moments when all you could say was, God, help me. And God says, I heard every one of them. Not one prayer was wasted. Not one tear fell unnoticed. Now God invites you to rest, not the rest of giving up, but the rest of trusting. Rest does not mean the journey is over, it means you no longer walk it alone. Jesus says, come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest. This rest is deeper than sleep. It is rest for the soul. Some of you listening have believed in God for years, but you have never truly surrendered your heart. You knew about Jesus, but you did not walk with Him. God says, this is your moment. Not to join a religion, not to impress anyone, but to begin a real relationship with Jesus Christ. Others of you walked with God before, but life wounded you. Disappointment pulled you away. Pain made you distant. God says, I am not angry. The father in the story of the prodigal son did not punish the returning child, he embraced him. God says, come back home. Jesus did not go to the cross to make you religious. He went to the cross to make you free. Free from guilt. Free from shame. Free from fear. Free from the past. When Jesus said, it is finished, He meant the debt was paid. God says, now you are stepping into the phase where preparation begins to show results. Not all at once, not dramatically, but clearly. What was forming in the unseen is starting to surface. Small confirmations. Quiet openings. Subtle shifts. These are not coincidences. They are signs that obedience is bearing fruit. For a long time, you trusted God without evidence. You walked by faith when nothing around you supported it.